Taking on this project has been a long time in the making. Several hurdles, several things got in the way. I'll tell you the biggest thing that stepped in my way, though, has been fear. Fear of what to say, fear of what not to say. I feel this content, all of the ideas, all the thoughts that I have to share, I feel it's very valuable, especially for veterans, but really for anybody. It's been probably one of the most interesting pieces of feedback is how much just civilians in everyday life have related to the bits of content so far. And in any case, my fear stems from not wanting to hurt anybody. I want to challenge people to step up and take responsibility to take action. And I never want to cause any harm to anybody. I never want to hurt anybody. I want to help as many people as possible while not hurting anyone. And, it feels noble when it's said. Yet a buddy of mine, a friend of mine, Thomas, he's a veteran, great guy. I love his direct, honest feedback. And he let me know. He's actually said it several times how he felt that my attempt to hold back to not hurt anyone would potentially and probably cause me to not hit anybody on a deep level that would cause change in that person. And so I would help or not hurt anybody. I also likely wouldn't help anybody on a deep level. And it really resonated with me because it showed up actually last week, and I regret that. It showed up because I held back on some stuff that would have been a tough conversation, but I didn't have it. I didn't jump into it. I didn't share much more about it. And, I feel like by not sharing stuff like that, it's putting at risk helping somebody on a deep, deep level. And so I want to start out with last week's content, going skydiving, and I'll share a little bit about where this content comes from, how I research it, and just really want to set some things straight and make a commitment to all of you as we go forward with this. Last week, the inspiration were two books. I actually have this book right here, Stealing Fire. I absolutely love this book. It's a great, great read. He talks about skydiving and its impact. He actually goes through how it really helps people with PTSD on some deep levels that I'll talk about in a minute. And then the oxytocin came from a separate book that talks about just the history of where oxytocin comes from, why our body rewards us for working with other people, and it's for our own survival. And so we get this feel-good sensation of oxytocin whenever we help our group, when we help everybody survive. And even in this book, Stealing Fire, he talks about the benefit. Another benefit of skydiving is being absolute. It forces you to be absolutely present to this moment right here, fully aware of everything that's happening around you, because oh crap, I might die right now. So you're hyper aware to everything. And it's a really great exercise for everyone. I think that's for everyone. I mean, we live in a society right now where the vast majority of people, we're living on our cell phones. And anytime you're on social media, you're looking at somebody else's past, not even looking at your own past. You're looking at something that happened with somebody else. And in any case, depressed people also live in the past. And if you're a veteran and you find yourself in a depressed state, that means you're likely living in the past and not living in the present. And doing something like skydiving, not only does it boost oxytocin, but it also helps exercise our minds to live in the present, to be aware of what's happening right now. And that's what's so great about this exercise of skydiving. I actually experienced something similar to this. It was a couple years ago. I climbed one of the 14ers in Colorado, a 14,000 foot peak. It was North Maroon Bells. It's a phenomenal climb. It's a beast. At the bottom of it, there's a huge sign that says that it's the Deadly Bells, because of, it's not common, but people have died on it, and they just tell you about the dangers of it. And I remember going up. I didn't do a ton of research on it, but there's no ropes, and just kind of hiking along. And I remember it's interesting because the rocks, they fall out of the mountain like no other mountain. They actually fall apart. I think they call it mud rock, something like that, because it literally will crumble apart. You can pick one up and it'll just crumble apart in your hands. And And that's how the mountain is you're walking across and these rocks are falling out. And I was traversing across this ledge, and it felt, I don't know the exact distance. It was a couple thousand feet. But I remember walking across this one rock, put my foot on it, put all my weight on this rock, stepped over to this other spot of safety. I reached back to this buddy that I was climbing with, and I grabbed it and I said, "Hey, man, this is your rock. Step on this one." And as I touched it, it fell out of the mountain and fell down a couple thousand feet, and it sent chills down my body because I just had all of my weight on that one rock that, after touching with my hand, fell out. And it was a mind-blowing experience, constantly aware of my own mortality and present, really present to everything around me. At the end of the climb, I don't think I've ever in my life been that mentally drained before. It's a feeling I've never felt, exhausted from my mind being so constantly hyper aware at all times of my own death. And I was just, every hand movement, every foot movement, every place I stepped, everything I grabbed, I was so aware of everything. And that's the point. That's the point of all of it. That's the point of skydiving. That's the point of doing something like that climbing experience, is getting yourself present. And there's nothing like that skydiving, because it's going to force you to be hyper aware, hyper present. And so you don't have to do something that extreme, but this is why it's something that could be potentially beneficial. There's a wide range of things that aren't risking your life, but as he goes through in this book, Stealing Fire, and I'm going to reference this book a lot because there's a lot of other great content inside of it, but he goes, there's so much good content, but you don't have to do something so extreme. But on top of that, these and skydiving give you that oxytocin boost that really help, in my opinion, help you prime the pumps, get you back into getting that feeling, and maybe want to go out and have that feeling again by having a conversation with somebody. And so that was the inspiration. It was not the catalyst, though. It was a different thing that catalyzed that. It was a phone call. I received a phone call a few weeks ago from a buddy of mine. He told me a veteran friend of theirs had just committed suicide. They have a group that meets every week. It's just some veterans hanging out on Wednesday nights. I mean, it sounds absolutely incredible. I've heard quite a few stories about things that they do, and honestly, I'm really excited to get out and go meet them at some point in time. And this veteran just started showing up, and he didn't say anything. He didn't share. He didn't talk to others. He just sat there. And this is, I want to point out that this is not, I wasn't there. So I'm speaking from my understanding. If I'm off there, I apologize. But then out of nowhere, he killed himself, and nobody really understood. And his suicide was the catalyst to this conversation on going skydiving. Yet I held back on sharing that piece of content out of fear. Fear because that's a tough topic. Fear because I don't want to sound like I'm minimizing or explaining this person's suicide. That's a huge, huge thing. Fear because I don't have the exact answer. Fear because there's so many unknowns out there, yet it's just a topic that we have to discuss. We have to talk about it. It has to have light shed on it. Because if we do nothing, if we say nothing, then it's going to continue to happen over and over and over. And that's what we can't have. And so I will act. And that's my commitment to you, is to not hold back again. I will act. And if I do have something out, I'll tell you, every episode is not going to be that extreme. There's a lot of lighthearted stuff. I already have quite a few outlines written, and there's some lighthearted things too. And my commitment, though, is if I do have something like that, I'm not going to hold back, because it's a conversation worthy of having. And the context of this episode and the last one is just that if you, a veteran, if you're showing up thinking that that's going to get you by, it won't. Not going to happen. You don't have to share the depth of your story. You don't have to share everything that you don't want to share. I mean, that's yours. However, you can't just sit on your ass and do nothing at all. you got to say what's up. You got to talk to somebody. Showing up means that you want to better yourself. If you show up, it means that you want to. You want to better yourself. So crack a joke, have a conversation. Saying nothing is really, in my opinion, is just as bad as just not showing up. And so show up, definitely keep showing up, and then have a conversation. Have a random conversation. Have a conversation about anything at all. Tell somebody you don't know what to say and you'd love to talk to them. And just have a random conversation about whatever they decide. The simple fact is that talking to someone that's a human connection. We as humans need that. And we need it on a deep level. I mean, so much so that our bodies have evolved to reward us with chemicals such as oxytocin to encourage us to go have those conversations. So humans need it, and we as veterans definitely need it. Open up, share something, and if not, if you're on the brink, if you're sitting on that ledge, making that choice, and you had enough, go skydiving. Seriously, go. Make it happen. And if it's a money thing, if you can't have it, if you call me up, my email address should be linked in the podcast. Drop me an email. I will help you make it happen. If that's, please, just go. Trust me, it's worthy of your time. And then do it again. Don't give up though. And really, truly, email me. Drop me a message. If you've got some held up that's not allowing you to do it, drop me an email. It'll be totally anonymous because I don't know who you are, and I'll definitely message you, and I will definitely help you out. That's my commitment to you, and that's how much I care. And as we cross this barrier, I just want to point out a couple of things. A few people have given me some great feedback, and I want to point out some items. Some people asked me why 10 minutes, and I don't plan them at 10 minutes. That just happens to be how long they've lasted. But the goal is to keep them bite-sized. I had a friend of mine gave me this. He sent me a podcast the other day, and he's like, "Man, Thad, you got to check this out. This is a great podcast, great episode." He sent it to me, downloaded it, went to open it up, and it was over 2.5 hours long. And my very first thought was like, which piece of this should I go to? Because 2.5 hours, I mean, that's a long time. Outside of family and work and a good book, there's not too many things I dedicate 2.5 hours to. And I'm totally fine with doing that, but give me some guidance. And it was just tough. And so for me, a shorter 10-minute episode is much easier to digest. It's much easier to get after, and it's tough to ignore. Like 10 minutes is a drive to work. 10 minutes is a small fraction of your workout. While you're making the coffee in the morning, you can digest a 10-minute episode. And so that's why I've chosen to live in this realm. And not to mention that, but one of my favorite quotes, Mark Twain said, "I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have enough time." And I love this quote because the simple fact is to write a shorter letter that's just as powerful, if not more, takes more time. It takes more time to write something shorter, condensed, than it does to write a longer letter. Not knocking anybody that has a long podcast. It takes some effort to get it down into a bite-sized chunk, and that's my commitment to you, is bite-sized chunks, intentional, specific, with action items that you can put to work today. And short enough that you have no excuse not to listen to them. I love to talk, I love to ramble, and I've got the content. This is just something that I want to do, and step by step we'll go through and piece them together. And it also will allow you, should you want to circle back and you enjoyed one piece, to go back and grab it. So till I'm proven wrong, till I'm proven otherwise, which I'm totally open to, bite-sized chunks, that's why these episodes are this length. And that's just how my mind operates. That's how I like to receive content. So I will not hold out on critical content, yet also know that I'm going to keep them smaller, bite-sized, so there's no rambling. It's very, very specific. I mentioned in a previous episode that the person that moves a mountain does so one stone at a time, and that's my goal. Give you one stone. Move one stone today. And, the final piece is somebody also asked me that it felt like there was mic drop moment at the end of an episode, yet you couldn't hear the mic drop. It was just kind of silence. Like, is it over? And I loved the feedback. And I'll point out one thing that I mentioned previously and conquer today is something that I have a lot of passion in, because I feel like if you're in a bad spot, if you're struggling, the goal for you, like I've talked about previously, should be to conquer today. Have a bite-sized, manageable goal and decide what the day being conquered looks like for you, and then conquer the day. And that means that if you're there at the end of the day, putting your head down in bed, and you've conquered today, you're in a great spot. That's my hope. And so that's going to be my closeout for every episode, at least for the foreseeable future. That'll be the signal that episode is over. I appreciate that piece of feedback. And so as we close out, that's my challenge for each one of you, is to consider where this has showed up for you. Consider where you've held out on having a conversation, because frankly, I shared the story about the veteran that showed up and didn't share anything, just sat there and listened to everybody else talk. And I also shared a story about me where I didn't share the full depth of this conversation. And I'm not saying you have to share something on a deep level, but where are you holding back? Where are you holding back on making a connection with another person? Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe you're not asking them a question. You don't have to share your deep, dark secrets. It's about saying hello. How was your day? And just being genuinely interested in another human being, because that's what makes us human. And to remove that from your life, to take away that human connection, that's going to be painful regardless of what your past looks like. And so that's my challenge, is open up where you haven't opened up, make a connection with somebody that you haven't connected with, go out there, don't hold back, and conquer today.